Hey, what's going on, everybody? Samuel Akem here, and I'm back with another one. I appreciate you guys for continuing to tap in with me. I am currently on vacation. Well, actually, by the time this is dropped, it will be a day after my vacation, but I will still be out of town. So, thank you guys for continuing to tap in. I'm recording this on Wednesday of the previous week. So, yeah. Also, I wanted to point out no headphones today. They are dead, and I actually can't find my charger. And I didn't take a lot of time to look for it, but I can't find my charger. Also, I wanted to point out, if you guys are always wondering why I'm always wearing hoodies in my videos, and you're like, Sammy, it's summer. Why are you wearing a hoodie? Because it is criminally cold in our office, in our guest room. It is so cold in here, like you wouldn't imagine. The AC is basically blasting all day. All the windows are closed, I believe. Everything seems to be shut. I mean, this room just must run warm because the AC is always blasting. I'm always freezing. I'm always cold. That's why I'm wearing a hoodie. But I got a great video for you guys today. Not a super long video for you guys today. A few topics. My number one topic and the main topic I want to cover today is Montana State and their schedule. I dropped my deep dive into Montana's schedule last week, and I want to do the same thing for Montana State. I had a fan comment down below asking me to do Montana State's schedule, so I will be doing their schedule. Also, I want to talk about Arch Manning. I know earlier in the offseason I talked about him not opting into the EA college football game. Something must have changed. That bag must have changed. Something clearly changed because now he is, in fact, opting in to the game, and reportedly he's getting a big bag. So we'll be talking about that. Mike Gundy made some absolutely outlandish comments about Ollie Gordon's DUI. We will be talking about that. And then lastly, Dave Aranda says paying players as one of the biggest reasons why they're looking really good on the recruiting trail. So we'll also talk about that. I want you guys right now for me to hit the subscribe button. Make sure you guys go hit that like button. Make sure you guys leave me a comment down below. Like I said, my first topic today is from a comment. So I do read the comments. I do see everything you guys say. I appreciate all the love and support you guys give me. But please leave me a comment. Please leave me a like on the video. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel, and we will get straight into it. Okay. First things first, we are taking a look at Montana State's 2024 schedule. And I know I probably honestly looked at it a little bit earlier in the season, but I didn't really do a deep dive and say what I think their record will be. So now is when I'm really going to try to not predict, but tell you guys what I think their wins and losses will be. I think, honestly, Montana State has a pretty favorable schedule. I think their conference schedule is probably one of the harder conference schedules in the Big Sky. They play a lot of the tougher teams. They play UC Davis. They play Montana. They play Sac State. They play Idaho. They play Eastern Washington, depending on how good they are. So I think their conference schedule is a little tougher than most. But I think their non-conference schedule is a little cupcake, so, they get an ebb and flow right there. Much drastic difference from when you look at that Portland State schedule. Hard non-conference schedule, hard in-conference schedule. Portland State just got everybody tough on their schedule this year. But game one, Montana State is going to face off against New Mexico. FCS versus FBS game. I believe that game is actually week 0 as well, so we'll get to see one of the Big Sky guys in Montana State play in that week 0 game. I like Montana State in that game. The rest of the country must also like Montana State in that game because they're a 4.5 point favorite against New Mexico, which I think is fair, very fair. Like Montana State's a very good team. Offensively, they're really good. Tommy Mellott is a dog. If you know anything about that squad, Tommy Mellott is what makes them go offensively. Defensively, you got Brody Grebe. You got Rylan Ort on the back end. I don't know much about who they have defensively. I know they have a good core of linebackers returning. Danny Uilekepa, which is, as I think how you pronounce his last name, is also returning. I know he dealt with some injuries last year, so I think they'll be pretty solid on both ends of the ball. Obviously, offense, like I said, is what makes them go. They have the best offensive linemen in all of FCS football, so, I like Montana State versus New Mexico. I'm keeping a little tally of their wins and losses. I'm giving them one win to start the season against New Mexico, giving them a 1-0 record. Next week, they have Utah Tech at Utah Tech. They had Utah Tech at home last year. Montana actually played there last year as well. So they'll get Utah Tech in Utah this year. And, you know, this isn't anything against Utah Tech. I think they play in that United Athletic Conference. It's nothing against them, but, like, they're just not there yet. You know, they moved up, I think 4 or 5 years ago, they moved up to the FCS, and they haven't really got their legs underneath them. They used to be called, when we played them, because I played them my senior year, I can't even remember what they were called. I just had it. Either way, Utah Tech, not a super good squad. I think that's a fairly easy dub, dare I say a blowout. It's usually a blowout when most teams play them. I think Montana State will continue that tradition and blow Utah Tech out. Next, following that game, and this is why people look at Montana State's non-conference schedule and they're like, it looks cupcakey. Because it is cupcakey, which is okay. You play the games that are on your schedule. You play the people that are in front of you. It is what it is. Week 3, or it might be week 3 or 4, because I don't know when their bye is. I know they play that week 0. Either way, they play Maine, their third game of the season. Maine, obviously in that CAA conference, the biggest conference in FCS football. They got a lot of comp in that conference. Maine is not one of the particularly competitive teams in that conference. I like Montana State to win that game, giving them their third early win of the season, starting the season off 3-0. Really good record for Montana State. I think, the schedule just looks very favorable for them. Not a lot of hard comp early on in the season. Then they have a recent FCS move up in Mercyhurst. I don't know if Mercyhurst is actually FCS playoff eligible. Most likely not, since they just moved up. But they are moving up to that NEC conference, which I say is the weakest conference in FCS football. Mercyhurst will be a new addition to that conference. Montana State recently just added them to their schedule because they got dropped by, did they get dropped by maybe Delaware? I don't know. You guys can let me know in the comments who dropped Montana State from their schedule. I'm blanking on it right now. I know I talked about it a couple of weeks ago, but I can't remember who dropped them. But they added Mercyhurst in that absence of whoever dropped them. Man, it was just on the tip of my tongue. Either way, somebody will say it in the comments. They now have Mercyhurst. I don't think anybody would argue with me that should be an easy game for Montana State. Giving Montana State their 4th win of the season, starting the season 4-0. So there we go. The non-conference schedule is over. And if you're judging off what I'm saying, if you're listening to me, I think Montana State will be 4-0 to start the season. I think they should be. I think everybody else would agree with me. Anybody who's a Montana State fan, anybody who's a Montana fan would agree that judging off their non-conference schedule, even with no New Mexico in there, Montana State should be 4-0 when they come into conference play. Probably one of the top 5 teams in the country after conference play, just given, well, maybe not given who they've played, but they should be in that top. Obviously, preseason, they're already top 10 anyway. So, either way, 4-0, finishing conference play. They start the conference play in Idaho, in Pocatello, Idaho, against Idaho State. I like Idaho State offensively. I think they've got a good couple of receivers. They have Chaden James is gone, but they have Fredrickson. They're really tall, like 6'5" receiver. They also have another receiver. I know Cyrus. I think his name was Cyrus, number 17. He's gone. Chaden James is gone. They might actually have some holes in that receiving core that they have to fill. I know they had another third receiver who had like 400 or 500 receiving yards. I know he's going to be another guy. Their quarterback, Jordan Cook, I believe he was a younger guy. I liked his traits. I didn't like what his stats looked like. I think he had one more interception than he did have touchdowns, so don't really like those numbers. I like him as a talent, but I just need the production, and I need to see it on the field. So I really like what Idaho State has. I say all that to say Montana State's going to beat them. If Idaho State doesn't figure it out defensively, they're not going to be anything this year. They're not going to ever be able to be anything. Idaho State has always been able to find pieces offensively. They've always figured out a way to put points up on the board, but they've never figured out a way to stop anybody. Anybody. So, given that, I give Montana State the dub in that game, in their 5th game of the season, and giving them the 5-0 record to start the season. Now, will it play out like this? Who knows? But I think looking at Montana State's schedule, they should be 5-0 to start the season. I think that's just what their schedule says. I think the only loss, and I mean this, the only loss I see on Montana State's schedule in their first 5, potential loss, and I mean this, they should barely lose this game if they do lose this game. I'm not going to say should because things happen. It's football. But I think the only justifiable loss that you can really point to for this Montana State team early on in the season would really be that New Mexico game. An FBS opponent, recruiting's different. They have more scholarship players, probably have better athletes in general just because of the FCS to FBS. But who knows, I think some of those lower tier FBS schools like New Mexico are very even with a school like Montana State. So who knows? But I could see if any game they were going to lose in those first 5, I could see it being that New Mexico game at New Mexico. Who knows what? I know New Mexico has some elevation. I don't know if their schools, New Mexico and New Mexico State are elevated, but that could play a part. Montana State's pretty high elevation, so that might not play a part. Who cares? Either way, we move on. They play Idaho State at Idaho State that week following the Idaho State game, and week 7 or week 6, their 6th game of the season. They have Northern Colorado. I'm not going to talk too much about Northern Colorado. We're going to give them their 6th win in the season against Northern Colorado, which means Montana State should start the season 6-0. I believe they should start the season 6-0. And this is where things get interesting for Montana State. 6-0, presumably 6-0 to start the season. Pretty easy early on schedule for them. Really good to get their feet underneath them, for them to figure things out. Week 7, or their 7th game of the season, whichever one it is. They play week 0, so this would technically even be week 6 for them, even if they hadn't had their bye week yet. Week 6, they play Idaho. Young Idaho squad. Montana State lost a close one to them last year. I am going to say, given Idaho's youth, and given what happened last year, this game will be in Bozeman this year with a younger Idaho squad. I know Idaho plays that ball control, but Montana State can run the ball very well too, so they can play ball control. The thing about Montana State, they can play ball control, but it's like sometimes they score so fast because their run game, they're getting such big chunks in the run game. It's like with their offensive line and their vicious run game and Tommy Mellott, they have the ability to do the ball control, but I don't think I would categorize Montana State as a ball control team. They put up points, they put up yards, but they're not really a team that's looking to control the clock. I don't think, at least the way I've watched them and what I've seen from them, I don't think they're a team that's looking. Now Idaho, they're a team that's looking to control the clock. I think that should be a dub for Montana State. You got them at home in Bozeman. You remember what happened last year. Hopefully the special teams game is a little better, because I think that's something that hurt them in that Idaho game. Hurt them in a lot of games. If you watched any Montana State games, you know their kicking game was something that hurt them. Idaho game, it hurt them. Sac State game, they won, but it could have hurt them. And then obviously to end the season against North Dakota State, it hurt them. I didn't watch every Montana State game last year. I watched quite a bit, and their kicking game was rough. Rough to say the least. I give them a dub at Idaho. Hopefully their kicking game is better, which means they should start the season 7-0. 7-0. Just by looking at this schedule, I think they start the season 7-0. I think. I really do think. I really do think that. Now, Portland State at Portland State. And I know what you're thinking, like, dang, like, so far they're 7-0. So far you're giving them all the grace. They haven't misstepped at all. But like, I really don't see a lot of comp in their schedule early. I really don't. And I'm not trying to down their schedule. I think very highly of some of the talent on Montana State's squad. And I just don't think very highly of some of the teams that they're playing against. That's just what it boils down to. Like, Montana State is a good outfit for the most part. They have good pieces. And the people that they're playing against aren't very good outfits. There aren't very good teams on their schedule early on. They have Portland State for their 8th game of the season at Portland State, at that field. I can't remember what that field is called, but I feel pretty confident saying that Montana State will beat Portland State. I feel pretty confident saying that. I think Portland State's success will be predicated on Dante Chachere and how well he's able to play this season. Obviously, I think he was one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Sky last year. Top 5, 8 quarterbacks in the Big Sky last year. Running the ball very successfully, throws it good enough. I don't think they had a ton of good receivers last year. I think they had decent running backs, a pretty good offensive line. They ran the ball pretty well. But I like Montana State better. I do like Montana State better against that Portland State squad, giving them their 8th win of the season, which means so far Montana State's 8-0. If you're judging off what I'm saying right now, how their schedule looks, I think they should start the season 8-0. At worst, if they lose at Idaho and they lose at New Mexico, I give Montana State a 6-2 record. But I really don't see them losing to Utah Tech. I really don't see them losing to Maine. I really don't see them losing to Mercyhurst. I don't see them losing to Idaho State. I know Idaho State can have a game here and there, so that's potentially one they could lose. But I feel pretty confident saying that I don't really see them losing to Idaho State. Northern Colorado, don't get me started. And then Portland State, those are the 6 dubs that I see so far that are like really pretty solid dubs for me. New Mexico and Idaho are pretty ebb and flow games, flex games, if you'll call them, like Coulter Nuanez, Skyline Sports likes to call them. But yeah, so far I really see an 8-0 schedule for Montana State. So far, I really see 8-0. I see a healthy 8-0. You guys obviously let me know in the comments what you guys think about this so far, but I see 8-0 going into the Portland State date next week at Eastern Washington. I'm going to shake things up. It's on the red turf at Eastern Washington. I know they have a little rivalry, not so much like an established, definitive rivalry, but I could see Montana State misstepping at Eastern Washington. And I'm not just doing this because they're 8-0 and I don't want them to get down to the end and get them an undefeated record, but I genuinely could see them misstepping at Eastern Washington. I could see them misstepping at Eastern Washington. On the red turf, I know teams don't always play the best there. I don't know what Montana State, I can't remember what that Big 4 graphic said about Montana State on the red turf. But I'm pretty sure Eastern Washington has a positive record because Montana State has a negative record against everybody in the Big 4. So I'm going to give Montana State, please don't hate me for this, Montana State fans. I'm going to give Montana State their first L of the season against Eastern Washington. Way in week 9, 8 or 9, whatever at that point what week it is. Probably week 8 or 9, given that they played in week 0. Giving them an 8-1 record. Still a really good record going into the next week. Still a really good record at that point in the season. 8-1. I mean, probably one of the best records in the season at that point in the season, if not the best. But 8-1, I see them dropping Eastern Washington. Next week after that, you got Sac State at home. I think Sac State will be pretty good. I don't think Sac State will be as good as they were last year. I think Sac State will float around 500 this year. They lost Terrace Marshall. They lost one of their receivers, one of their faster receivers. They lost a lot of pieces on defense, and they weren't super great on defense. Defense was what kind of held them back last year. So I see them beating Sac State, giving them their 9th win of the season, making them 9-1. Going into those last 2 weeks of the season, 9-1, really good record. 10 games into the season versus Sac State at home. I like Montana State against Sac State. I really do like Montana State against Sac State. I do. Now, I think these last 3 weeks, these last 3 to 4 weeks of Montana State's schedule are really the toughest games of their schedule. You got Sac State, you got UC Davis. Well, you got Eastern Washington. Then you got Sac State, then you got UC Davis, then you got Montana. So really those last 3 are really tough. Sac State, UC Davis, at Montana. The good thing about Sac State and Montana, you get them at home. Next week, after the Sac State game that I'm going to say they're going to win with a 9-1 record, finishing that game with a 9-1 record, they got UC Davis at UC Davis. Now, I think health will be a big thing for UC Davis. Lan Larison is obviously the key. If he's healthy, I think we see a much different UC Davis team than we would if he was not healthy. Obviously, Lan Larison got hurt last year, and I think they looked much differently. I think they were still worthy of a playoff spot. Obviously, the committee chose Sac State over them, but I think that UC Davis team will be a tough out this year. I think they will. So with that in mind, I'm going to give UC Davis the nod. I'm going to give them the nod here. Health. This is predicated on health, but I like the fact that it's a home game for them. I think that could potentially hurt Montana State. This will be later on in the season. I'm not even going to put that in there. I'm not going to put that in there. Given both teams are healthy, I like UC Davis at UC Davis. I think it'll be a really close game. If both teams are healthy, I think it's a really close game, but I like UC Davis. I like them to win this game. So giving Montana State their second loss of the season, making them 9-2 going into that final date against Montana, giving them that win, giving them that win, making them 9-2, making them 9-2. 9-2. That's a really good record. It's a really, really good record. Final game of the season, the Brawl of the Wild, Cat Grizz, Montana State versus Montana. I did my rankings for Montana's games last week, and I got to stay consistent. I cannot just flip. I know how the home and home is gone. I know how the home and home is gone. But I really, 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 I like Montana against Montana State in Bozeman this year. I like them to be able to get their first away win at Bozeman since 2015, and be the first away win since 2015 in Bozeman. I like that to happen this year in 2024. I think it'll happen this year in 2024, and I'm saying that also, I'm sticking with what I said in my Montana schedule rankings. You guys can go back and watch that last week's video, but that will give Montana State their third loss of the season. I know they didn't finish the season. Judging off what I'm saying, it doesn't seem like they will finish off the season strong. Obviously, I'm liable to be wrong. For Montana State fans' sake, I hope I'm wrong. I'm trying to be very objective this year, so I'm not leaning any other way, either way, one or the other. I'm trying to be very fair here. 9-3 record for Montana State is what I see healthy for them. Obviously, it could be much better than that. They could run the table for those 3 games that I said they would lose. Those 3 games being Eastern Washington on the red turf, UC Davis at UC Davis, and Montana at home. I know, Montana at home. The only reason I'm sticking with that Montana one is because I said I honestly like Montana's team this year. I really do. But also, I know on my Montana ranking, I said I thought Montana would win in Bozeman this year. So I'm going to stick with that. 9-3 record, not bad. Definitely a playoff record, coming from the Big Sky Conference. I think Montana State is a playoff team in 2024. Obviously, that's yet to be determined. Health will play a big piece of that. Tommy Malott, the big player in question. Obviously, who's spelling him if they are still running a 2-quarterback system this year? That's going to be a big question mark. But you guys let me know what you guys thought about my predictions and my deep dive into Montana State's schedule this year. 9-3 record. Obviously, it could be some ebb and flow. I think at best, Montana State is honestly, Montana State is a 12-0 team. I think this schedule, I think they could go 12-0. Health is a big part of that, but I think Montana State could go 12-0. I think at worst with this schedule, Montana State finishes the season, maybe add 2 more losses, so 12 games, 7-5. I think is at worst what I could see their schedule, their record being 7-5 at worst. But I really think, being fair, I think they finish with a 9-3 record. You guys let me know what you think about that in the comments. Let me know. Please bash me if you think, hey, Sammy, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. Let me know. Either way, I will move on. Okay, real quick topic here. Arch Manning has officially announced, him and I think it was Eli, they dropped a video with Arch talking about plays or whatever on EA College Football. He will be on the game. And I know I talked about this earlier in the offseason. Arch Manning was opting out of the game because he's a backup. They said something about he doesn't want to be on the game until he's the guy. I get that. But when EA College Football is throwing you a bag, you're a Manning. You're the only Manning probably ever to be on an NCAA college football game. So far, you're the only Manning ever to be on the game. So I think that's a big draw for him. And also, they're throwing that bag at him. Pete Nakos of On3 said EA Sports paid Texas QB Arch Manning between $50,000 and $60,000 to promote college football 23. On3 has learned. The former number 1 overall recruit in 2023 class will also receive $600 and a copy of the game for opting in. So obviously, what every other college football player is getting, $600 in the game, but he also is getting $50,000 to $60,000 to promote the college football game. I think that's really awesome. I think I'm glad that somebody spoke to him and talked him out of it. Like, hey, man, like, I get you want to focus on football. I don't think being on the game is going to detract from football. I get you want to be the guy, but like, who cares if you're the guy? If they're trying to pay you $50,000 to $60,000 just to be on the game for as a backup, like, hello, I would take it. Obviously, I'm not Arch Manning. Obviously, nobody's throwing me $50,000 to $60,000 to be on a game. But if I was him, I would take it. Obviously, I'm not him. But obviously, he is taking it because he snapped out of it. Somebody spoke to him, Peyton or Eli, one of them, maybe even their dad. I can't remember their dad's name, but one of the Mannings got into his ear and was like, Arch, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Let's go get that money. Let's go get that check. Let's go get that chicken. Either way, really cool for Arch Manning for him to be able to be an ambassador of the game. Really cool for him to be able to see himself on the game. Really excited for him. I think it'll be a great partnership for EA college football. I think it'll be really cool for the Manning family to get to see their last name on a college football game. You guys let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. Obviously, like I said, a really short topic, but you guys let me know what you think about this in the comments, and I will move on. Okay, now this is a really interesting topic. If you don't follow college football, please go look at this. I'm not going to play the video because I haven't been able to figure out the sound with when I play videos and I play sound. For some reason, I can't get the sound to work, so I got to figure that out. But please go watch the Mike Gundy video of him talking about Ollie Gordon and the DUI he got. So Mike Gundy was talking, one of the reporters, obviously Ollie Gordon a couple of weeks ago got a DUI. And I don't think he's facing any punishment from the school. They said his legal limit the legal limit in Oklahoma is .08. They said he was a .1, or .08. Yeah. So he was a .1. So really .02 away from being underneath, or .03, I guess, away from being underneath that legal limit. Not okay to be behind the wheel, no matter what. Really, if you've had any alcohol in you. I'm not going to say any alcohol because one drink you could, be under the legal limit and you're not feeling any type of way. But I think, being where he was at the close and over the legal limit, not okay to be driving. Mike Gundy goes on a short tangent and says, when I saw what the legal limit was, it was .08 and Ollie was a .1. I thought to myself, oh, geez, I've done that a million times before. And it's just like, huh? I know all the reporters in the crowd were just holding their mics out like, wait, did he really just say that? He said, I've done that a million times, 1,000 times? Like, what are you talking about? You are the head coach of a Power 4 Big 12 institution in Oklahoma State. One of the most storied institutions in the Big 12. Like, you are one of the most tenured, probably the most tenured coach in the Big 12 currently. Like, what are we doing? I know Mike Gundy has media training. He's been a head coach for years and years. He's been a head coach for multiple decades, I'm sure. Like, I don't know when Mike Gundy became a head coach of Oklahoma State. My brother played for Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. Like, he's been there for a long time. Not to say my brother's old because he's only 2 years older than me, but Mike Gundy has been there for a long time. And surely he knew that what he was saying was not gonna fly at all. Let me read a little bit about the article that was talking about this on Bleacher Report, and then I'll say some more comments. In late June, Oklahoma State running back Ollie Gordon was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence. Per KOCO News, an Oklahoma Highway Patrol report noted that Gordon, who is 20 years old, gave a breath sample of .011, which is above Oklahoma's legal limit of .08, so .03 above that legal limit. Although the junior has since apologized, it was unclear if he'd be facing any discipline in the fall. OSU coach Mike Gundy provided the answer on Tuesday, saying he would not suspend first-team AP All-American for any games. Now look, I join the masses and suggest Gundy not make a habit of saying he's probably done that 1,000 times in my life. That was the quote. Probably done that 1,000 times in my life. In regard to drinking 2 to 4 beers and then driving, it's not a great statement, and that quickly became a second talking point from Gundy. Strictly on the field, however, we know OSU will be rolling out Gordon in the opener against South Dakota State. So he made another comment, and they asked him what does he plan to do to punish Ollie Gordon. He said for punishment, he plans to give Ollie Gordon the ball 50 times in the season opener, which is just kind of funny, if anything. But it's just like crazy that a head coach of a Power 5 Big 12 institution with a Power 4 Big 12 institution would say, I've probably done that 1,000 times. What are you talking about? What are we talking about here, Mike? Like, you can't say that. You cannot say that. And I wonder if he's going to face any discipline from the from Oklahoma State University for saying this. I would really wonder if that's going to happen, or if the Big 12 is going to discipline him, because it was at the Big 12 Media Day. I wonder what's going to come of this. Probably nothing. Most likely nothing. But I just think it's kind of wild that he was willing to say that. Like, dude, like, what are we talking about? I don't know. You guys let me know what you guys thought about Mike Gundy's comments. Let me know what you guys thought about him in the comments down below, and I will move on. Okay, final topic. Baylor football. Dave Aranda says paying players, in quotes, has boosted Baylor's recruiting success in the Big 12. Baylor head football coach Dave Aranda didn't mince words on what has led to the Bears having more success on the recruiting trail. "We're paying players," Aranda told reporters Wednesday. Baylor boosters have given the Bears one of the largest NIL budgets in the Big 12, allowing Aranda to land players he might not have had a chance to sign a few years ago. The Bears were late to enter the NIL space, but the GXG program launched in 2022 and introduced GXG Elite earlier this year. After a shaky recruiting cycle in 2024 high school class, Aranda has 15 commits already in the 2025 class. Kamarin Morgan, who signed with Baylor earlier this month, is currently the best of the crop. The 4-star defensive lineman is the number 94 overall prospect in the high school class, according to 24/7 Sports. Success in the recruiting trail is all relative. Baylor will likely never be able to compete for the same type of prospects taking their talents to Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State, but a robust NIL program should help the Bears compete in the second and third tiers of players. So basically, that piece is saying, although Baylor doesn't have the same name, so you might have the same money, and they might not even have the same money as some of those organizations, but they don't even have the same name. So it's like you'll never be able to measure up to Alabama, Georgia, or Ohio State. But, you can get some of those tier 2, tier 3 players who fall by the wayside, don't end up at some of those bigger schools. You can get some of those still premier players. Baylor will also have the advantage of a newly wide open Big 12 after the departures of Texas and Oklahoma. The Big 12 welcomed Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado to its ranks this offseason in a major shakeup of one of the nation's top conferences, which I would dispute. The Big 12 has never won a national championship. The ACC has, the Big 10 has, the SEC has. The Big 12 is now the final power conference. If you take out the Pac-12, the Pac-12 never won one anyway. The Big 12 is the final power conference that has never won a college football championship. That needs to change. Who is going to be the first school to change that? That might need to be a topic that needs to be talked about in the media more. Why has the Big 12 not won a championship? The Big 12 is now the only power conference not to win one. Clemson, ACC, Alabama, Georgia, in the SEC, LSU as well, and then you got Michigan in the Big 10 just winning their first one. So the Big 12's got to catch up. They've had OU. I don't know if OU has played in a championship game. I know they've made it to the semis. I'm trying to think. Texas just played in the semis. But yeah. Oh man, the Big 12's got to catch up. Aranda is 23-25 in 4 seasons at Baylor and could be on the hot seat coming off a 3-9 season in 2023. Getting some NIL funds for some higher caliber players could make all the difference in keeping him in Waco. Man, do or die for Coach Aranda right now. Do or die for Coach Aranda. Do or die. He's got to get it together, or they're going to probably be making some changes. I'm sure if he doesn't get it figured out this year, we might be seeing some changes. I know, obviously, I think his first or second year they won the Big 12 championship. I believe that they might have won it last 2 years ago they won it a couple of years ago against Oklahoma State, because I know there was like a last-minute play for Oklahoma State. That might have been TCU. I know TCU won it 2 years ago. Last year, Texas won the Big 12. The year before that, so Texas last year, the year before that, TCU. I think the year before that is when Baylor won it. One of those years before then, Baylor won it, I believe. Baylor won it. Either way, they've got to get it figured out. NIL has been greatly helping them. There's a lot of money in Texas. A lot of those Texas schools do really well. Texas A&M does well with NIL. Texas The University of Texas does well with NIL. I've heard SMU does really, really well with NIL in that Dallas area. I don't know how TCU does, but obviously Baylor is trying to catch up to everybody now. So, yeah, we'll see how they do. You guys let me know in the comments what you guys think about that. Let me know in the comments what you think about that, and I will move on. Okay. I know I've been saying this a lot the last couple of weeks. Definitely a shorter video this week. I'm only at 35 minutes right now, but I want to thank you guys for tapping in. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. Make sure you guys hit the like. Make sure you guys leave me a comment. I appreciate you guys. Let me know some topics that you guys want me to cover. Big Sky Media Day is only a couple of weeks away. I will be there. Probably when this video drops, it'll be about a week and a half away, maybe a week and a half away. But really big time for me. I will be a credentialed media member this year, so make sure you guys look out for me. I will be covering Big Sky football, so I'll be in the press box most of the time. I don't really like a field view. I like a stadium view, but I don't really like a field view. But I will be credentialed this year, so giving player interviews this year, being on the field, being one of those nosy media members, as the players probably like to call them. But I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited about the football season. It's going to be really, really fun. Super fun. I'm super excited. I'm super excited for this new role within the media. So you guys let me know what you guys thought about my video today. Make sure you guys leave me some comments. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you are not. I will catch you guys next week. Make sure you guys have a really good week. Stay cool out there. Thank you.